Thanks.
You wanna make sure you guys rename yourself. So.
Okay, we've got 1 o'clock. Welcome everybody to our second webinar of the day. We are talking today about the new guidance that has come out from the state, kind of as a surprise, I think, to many of us yesterday, to now allow outdoor service to be added to the takeout food service. So I'm Crystal Surdick. I'm the Director of Development with the City of Jamestown. Quickly, we put this webinar series together really as a way to connect with our businesses and assist in the process of kind of distilling all of the information that's been coming at all of us, sort of from every direction since the beginning of this public health crisis. So we understand that it's a lot of info. It's a lot to kind of sift through. And so we wanted to try to assist with that the best that we could. So I guess I'll start with, sorry, lots of people joining in. I'll start with thanking our local partners, the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency, the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce, and the Small Business Development Center. So throughout this, since the beginning of this crisis, these local partners have been really putting together resources and working really closely with us and all of our local businesses to provide information and also to help sort of sift through state guidelines as they come down. So we are now in phase 2, as you know, and we are really excited that we've gotten the okay to go ahead with outdoor dining, but there's a lot of information that we need to get through in order to get there. So also of note, thank you, Seth, for throwing that up there. The Jamestown Renaissance Corporation has recently released 3 new grant programs. So there's urban e-commerce, urban dining, and parklets, which you'll be hearing a lot more about in the coming days. It's on the agenda for the council meeting, special meeting on Monday night. I'm sure you've probably heard some of the buzz in the community with your fellow restaurant owners. So we're working to put a parklet pilot program together as quickly as we can. So stay tuned for more information on that. But yeah, I guess I'll hand things over to Seth, who is our presenter today, and we'll get through this presentation, and there will be time for questions at the end. And then all of this information will be available on the city's website under the Restart tab. So with that, Seth, if you'd like to take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Seth Piccirillo. I am a consultant working with the Development Department for Jamestown. Very happy to be talking to everyone. As Crystal mentioned, so the outdoor takeout food service is very new. It was not what we started the week with. It's so new that really even the guidance looks different on the state's website. So we're going to go through the text. So I'm just going to say this, forgive me that there's going to be a lot of text on these slides, but it's for a reason. The state is basically set up a open book test for safety guidelines for all these phases of businesses. This will make business more complicated, but we are responding to a pandemic. So we need to take the opportunity to score very well on this open book test and get the economy going again. So we're going to be talking more even after today about with outdoor dining and food service, what does that mean about encroachment and opportunities to work with the city? Those questions should be referred to the Department of Development for right now. And also, if you have any questions on the safety plan that we're going to talk about in general, we're here to help through that website as well. So I'm going to, in a moment, I'm going to go over the very, very new guidance on the outdoor takeout dining. And then also, we're going to talk about what has been put forth for retail, because it makes sense for you to be adhering to both of those at this point, just to be safe. There are some national and statewide assistance programs for you to take advantage of. Last week, New York State put forth the NY Forward Loan Fund for small businesses. The link is provided here. The U.S. Small Business Administration has the largest listing of financial programs, and as of yesterday, the United States Senate and the House of Representatives enacted further legislation for small business recovery, so there will be more. So that website is an important resource for you. While it's not financial, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has done a good job of putting together best practices and guidance that they update for many industries, and I suggest that you check that out as well. So Jamestown, just like your businesses as a city, is responding to new safety protocols. They're taking it very seriously, and they've put forth their Restart Jamestown plan on the website here listed, and we suggest that you take a look at it. So phase 2 is upon us this week. What do we do now? And I'm just going to remove my screen so we can go through these slides. It's going to be a lot of gray area for the next couple of weeks, months, and the rest of this year as we're adjusting to a pandemic. But we know what our next steps are, and that's what today is about. It's about completing your business safety plan. It's about affirming your business's compliance with the New York Forward reopening guidance. It's reviewing the plan with your employees so they make sure they know how this is impacting their daily shifts, and to make the plan accessible to your customers who you're hoping are going to come in and spend money at your business again. There's going to be gray areas. There's going to be confusion along the way. This will make daily operation of businesses more difficult, but we know that the business safety plan and the affirmation of the guidance are the necessities and our next steps. Forward.ny.gov is the clearinghouse for all of the guidance from New York State. If you have not gone to this website yet, I hope that you will today, because it has all of the next steps that you need to take. Part of that website that I would suggest taking a look at least once a week is the regional unpaused dashboard. Jamestown's part of the Western New York region, and the reopening is based on health metrics going in the right direction. So available hospital beds, number of cases, testing. So I would suggest on a weekly basis, check in with the dashboard and make sure that there are no changes. Obviously, there's going to be media coverage on this extensively, but this is a resource for you to take advantage of. If you're not sure where your business falls in as far as sector and phase, you can take a look through the Forward website to the business reopening lookup tool. You can type in your region and your business, and it will let you know what phase you are in. That website includes the business safety plan template and affirmation link that we're going to talk about at the end of the presentation. It also includes helpful summary guidance that applies to all businesses, and then detailed guidance and guidelines for your specific industry, and a writable PDF safety plan template that I would suggest using. You don't have to, but it lines up everything that the state is looking for in a writable PDF, and it's something that you can take advantage of. So these safety plans and affirmations are about building employee trust and customer confidence. You need your employees and your customers to feel safe being in your business, whether that be indoors or outdoors. If we are going to restart the local economies, employees must feel like their employers are taking safety protocols to keep them protected, and customers must feel that businesses are taking safety very seriously. Just very quickly, phase 1 opened on May 19th. That included construction, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, retail limited to curbside or in-store pickup, manufacturing, and wholesale trade. Phase 2, which opened June 2nd, professional services, retail, administrative support, real estate, rental and leasing, and the added bonus of outdoor and takeout delivery food services. We anticipate a 2-week time period between phases, but as we're seeing this week, that is not written in stone. What we do know is that full operation of restaurants and food services are not open. They're phase 3. Phase 4, which is not open, is arts, entertainment, recreation, and education. Whether or not you have been operating since the beginning of the pandemic or you are getting ready to operate now, these guidelines, this business safety plan, this affirmation applies to everyone. It is across the board next steps that every business needs to take. Every business is unique and safety protocols are often unique. You are, of course, able to write your own safety protocols that are specific to your space, to your patio, to anything that you're dealing with. But it is clear that you must meet all of the guidelines that are being put forth by the state. So it's not set up this way yet for the outdoor food section yet, but when you go to the website and you go to phase 2 and you click on your industry, it brings you to mandatory and recommended best practices. Because this is so new for the outdoor portion, it's not set up like this yet. What I did was went through the interim guidelines and found the mandatory guidelines that will eventually be in this form. And that's what we're going to go over today. So outdoor and takeout delivery food services. For the purpose of this guidance, outdoor space is defined as an open air space without a fixed roof besides a temporary seasonal awning or cover. Within such outdoor space, all tables with seats must be 6 feet from any other table, seat, patron, or pedestrian throughout thoroughfare or corridor. You're going to see 6 feet used often in all guidelines. Making sure there is 6 feet of distance whenever possible is what the state is looking for. Responsible parties must ensure an indoor capacity to accommodate patrons who may need to enter or exit through the indoor space to access the outdoor seating and restrooms or payment location and allow such access and egress in a socially distant manner. The reason that I'm also going to talk about the retail guidelines right now at the end of going through the specific outdoor and takeout is, it would be my recommendation that because you're going to be having people potentially coming into your business, that you need to meet those retail protocols. If that changes, we will make sure to update you. Responsible parties should ensure that the distance of at least 6 feet is maintained among workers at all times, unless the core activity requires a shorter distance, like cooking, cleaning, clearing tables, and maintenance. I know if we have restaurants on the call right now, they know that 6 feet is not possible in many situations, especially in the kitchen. That's why things like PPEs and face coverings are going to be important. Regardless of physical distance, responsible parties must ensure all employees wear an acceptable face covering at all times. Patrons must also wear face coverings at all times, except when seated, while seated, provided, however, that the patron is over the age of 2 and able to medically tolerate such a covering. Acceptable face coverings for COVID-19 include, but are not limited to, cloth-based face coverings and disposable masks that cover both the mouth and nose. However, cloth, disposable, or homemade face coverings are not acceptable face coverings for workplace activities that typically require a higher degree of protection for personal protective equipment due to the nature of the work. For those activities, N95 respirators or PPEs used under existing industry standards should continue to be used as is defined in accordance with OSHA guidelines. Responsible parties must ensure that outdoor capacity is limited to the number of tables that can be safely and appropriately arranged such that each table is a minimum of 6 feet away from one another. Responsible parties must ensure that outdoor tables with seating for customers are separated by a minimum of 6 feet in all directions. Wherever distancing is not feasible between tables, responsible parties must enact physical barriers between such tables. That's a big one for restaurants. The physical barriers must be at least 5 feet in height and must not block emergency and/or fire exits. Responsible parties may allow customers to sit at outdoor bar areas, provided a distance of at least 6 feet can be maintained between parties, like groups of patrons. Responsible parties must ensure that the bar area staff keep a distance of at least 6 feet between each other and/or customers when possible. Responsible parties may seat as many individuals at a single table as the table allows, with a maximum of 10 individuals per table. Individuals seated at a table must be members of the same party, but may be from different households. Communal tables in which multiple parties are seated at the same large table are only permitted if a distance of at least 6 feet can be maintained between the parties. Responsible parties must ensure indoor dining and seating areas are closed to customers and are not used. Responsible parties may offer restroom access to customers, provided that social distancing is promoted within and while waiting for the restrooms. Responsible parties may modify the use and/or restrict the number of workstations and employee seating areas so that employees are at least 6 feet apart in all directions. Examples are side to side and when facing one another, and are not sharing areas without cleaning and disinfecting between use. When distancing is not feasible, like pickup stations and cash registers, responsible parties may enact physical barriers like plastic shielded walls in areas where they would not affect airflow, heating, cooling, or ventilation, and must not block emergency and/or fire exits. If used, physical barriers should be put in place in accordance with OSHA guidelines. Physical barrier options may include strip curtains, plexiglass, or similar materials, and/or impermeable dividers or partitions. Responsible parties should prohibit the use of small spaces like freezers or storerooms by more than one individual at a time, unless all employees in such space at the same time are wearing acceptable face coverings. However, even with face coverings in use, occupancy must never exceed 50% of the maximum capacity of the space unless it is designed for use by single occupant. Responsible parties should increase ventilation with outdoor air to the greatest extent possible, examples being opening windows and doors in kitchens while maintaining safety protocols. Responsible parties should put in place measures to reduce bidirectional foot traffic using tape or signs with arrows in narrow aisles, hallways, or spaces, and post signage and distance markers denoting space of 6 feet in all commonly used areas and any areas in which lines are commonly formed or people may congregate, like the clock-in stations, the health screening stations, and break rooms. Responsible parties must clearly signal 6 feet spacing in any lines for customers waiting to order, pick up food, or be seated, or to use the restroom by using tape, and any pickup or payment location like counters, tables, and the register. Responsible parties must designate entrances and exits for all customers and separate entrances and exits for employees when possible. Responsible parties should encourage customers to wait in their car or outside at an appropriate social distance until food is ready to be picked up or they are ready to be seated. Responsible parties should encourage customers to place remote orders online or by phone. When possible, responsible parties should allow for contactless order, payment, delivery, and pickup, and/or implement curbside pickup. When contactless payment is not feasible, responsible parties should minimize the use of billfolds and present paper receipts only. Should also consider allowing customers that will be seated to order ahead of time to limit the amount of time spent in the establishment. You must post signs throughout the site consistent with Department of Health COVID signage. You can develop your own customized signage specific to the workplace or setting, provided that such signage is consistent with the Department of Health's signage language. Signage should be used to remind employees and patrons too Cover their nose and mouth with a mask or face covering. Properly store and, when necessary, discard PPE. Adhere to physical distancing instructions. Report symptoms of or exposure to COVID-19 and how they should do so. Follow hand hygiene and cleaning and disinfection guidelines. Follow appropriate respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette. Before returning to work, responsible parties must complete pre-return checks and assessments of kitchen systems to ensure a healthy and safe environment. Must ensure kitchen staff wear face coverings at all times. You should reconfigure kitchens to maintain 6 feet of distance to the extent possible. You should stagger shifts if possible to do work like food prep ahead of time. You should ensure kitchen staff are dedicated to one station throughout their shift. Examples like salad or grill and desserts. So before I get into the regular part of the retail section that would help inform some of the decisions that you are going to be making, I think we should see if there's any questions on what I specifically talked about for the outdoor dining and pickup. I know it's a lot to digest, and I know a lot of it is going to be difficult. That's why I want to stop here and see if there's any questions. One thing to keep in mind, because this is so new, for the other industries, it's more clearly defined of what is mandatory and what is a best practice. You can see in some of the language, there's a lot of must and should that are commingled. I think in the next couple of days, that'll get separated more cleanly on the website, but that's how they have it presented right now.
Hey, Seth.
Yes.
Hey, this is Eric Hagelin with Four Below Bar and Grill. One of the questions I have is in regards to your PPE masks. It says that homemade masks and all that are not acceptable, but it says before that it is acceptable. I guess just curiosity as far as what all is actual acceptable face coverings and or what needs to be done outside of that.
So what the way that I read it, and I clarified it this morning, is that if there is work that would require an N95 mask or something that is industry specific, a homemade cloth cut bandana would not be appropriate. But if we're talking about people in the kitchen, something homemade, surgical, as long as it works for them as being able to breathe, it is acceptable. I was reading it the same way as if like, for instance, let's say they, and I'm just making this up, let's say all of a sudden they had to go assist a elderly person and, whatever, for whatever reason, a normal face mask would not necessarily suffice, but just general laboring in the kitchen and or wait staff is homemade mask is acceptable. Yes, and I think honestly, just as having a little bit of experience with kitchens, surgical masks might make, something that is light might make the most sense in a kitchen in the summer. Things like bandanas, which you see used often, they're going to be heavier. So if you're looking to see what breathes the easiest, I think especially for kitchen staff, that's an important question.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. If there are no other questions specific to outdoor food service, I'm going to go through what was put forth for retail, and here's why. There's a couple of things that were referenced a minute ago about screening and cleaning and hygiene that the retail section at least gives you clearer, mandatory, and then best practices. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through that. I'm just going to shut my screen off as well. So physical distancing, again, this is a little bit of a rehash because it's indoors. So I'll just go through what's important. Ensure 6 feet of distance, again, between individuals unless safety or core function of the work requires a shorter distance. So that's something as you're writing your business plans, 6 feet in the kitchen might not be possible. You have to explain why. reduce interpersonal contact and congregation through methods such as limiting workforce presence to only employees necessary to conduct retail activities. I'm gonna skip down to tightly confined spaces like elevators, stock rooms, behind cash registers, narrow merchandise aisles should be occupied only by one individual at a time unless all individuals are wearing face coverings. If occupied by more than one person, keep occupancy under 50% of max capacity. Moving on. Post social distancing markers using tape and signs that denote 6 feet of spacing and commonly used in other applicable areas like the clock-in stations, health screening stations, break rooms, cash register, merchandise aisles. Limit in-person gatherings as much as possible using tele or video conferencing whenever possible. If a meeting is necessary, it should be in open, well-ventilated spaces with appropriate social distancing among participants. Establish designated areas for deliveries, limiting contact to the extent possible. One doesn't apply. Some best practice recommendations. Now, these aren't requirements, but they're recommendations from the state. Create additional space for employees by limiting in-person presence to only personnel necessary for current tasks. A suggestion that's being put forth by the state many times is creating A/B teams. Why is that important? Contract tracing. So if you can set up your shifts that you know who's in team A or team B, if unfortunately there was a positive case in the restaurant with a customer or as part of your staff, it makes it easier for you to trace who you need to contact. Modify the use and or restrict the number of workspaces, employees, seating areas to maintain 6 feet of distance in all directions. If not feasible, provide and require face coverings and enact physical barriers like plastic shields and walls in accordance with OSHA guidelines in areas where they would not impair airflow, heating, cooling, or ventilation. Modify retail layouts and reduce bi-directional foot traffic by using tape, signs, and arrows in narrow aisles, hallways, or spaces. This applies to people that might be coming into your business to use the bathroom or et cetera. Provide clearly designated and separate entrances and exits. Implement a touchless delivery system for merchandise deliveries where drivers stay in the vehicle while the delivery takes place. If not feasible, provide acceptable protective equipment for the delivery process, including at a minimum of face covering. Minimize touch points of products by suspending the use of bulk bins to encourage customers to touch only the product that they will be buying. Provide remote shopping alternates for customers, including click and collect, delivery, shop by phone, and limit customers in the establishment. So from now, I'm going to, because some of this is redundant, I'm going to get into PPE. Employers must provide employees with an acceptable face covering at no cost to the employee and have an adequate supply of coverings in the case of replacement. Very important for kitchens. You're going to make the assumption that you're going to go through face coverings at a pretty high rate, and it is your responsibility to provide them. Acceptable face coverings include, but are not limited to, cloth, homemade sewn, quick cut, bandana, surgical masks, unless the nature of the work requires stricter PPEs like N95 respirators or face shield. Face coverings must be cleaned or replaced after use and may not be shared.
Hey, Seth.
Yes.
Hey, this is Eric Hagelin again. Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of your thing. So one of the questions I have as far as disposable face coverings, I've been on, I think, every website, Amazon, everything, and every time I try to order face coverings, they are out of stock, or they say it's designed for frontline employee or people only, and not allowing to order. Is there something, and I guess this is more for the Jamestown, is there something that an area that businesses would be able to purchase these, whether they're from downtown Jamestown or things like that? I know Maple Vale, which is my food service distributor, had purchased some, but they've already sold out of them and are having a hard time getting more of them. So I'm going to supply everybody with one that they can take home with them and clean and make sure that it's all taken care of that way. However, if they forget it at home, I want to be able to have, just disposable ones that they would be able to start their shift and keep working with. But
Right.
It's kind of hard to purchase something that doesn't exist.
Well, if Crystal or anyone locally has something more specific to Jamestown, I do have a Western New York source product page that I will share after this. That there are companies, and they range from, you know, business to business companies to places like ABC Rental and some other companies that you wouldn't expect that do have surgicals, they do have gloves, and if necessary, but I don't think it would be N95s. So I can share that at the end of this presentation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
We can add to that list. I'm not sure who it is, but they mentioned in the chat that US Foods has them in stock as well. So I think what we'll do is add to that Jamestown Restart page places for these kinds of resources. So you have all of that information in the same place.
It's a great idea. Okay, so limit the sharing of objects like tools, registers, and vehicles, and discourage touching of shared surfaces. Or when in contact with shared objects or frequently touched areas, wear gloves, trade appropriate or medical, or sanitize or wash hands before and after contact. With that, you got to think pans, knives, things that you're using, hand tools in the kitchen, that applies. So again, if you can figure out on your A and B teams who's using what, that will help. Cleaning and hygiene. Adhere to hygiene and sanitation requirements from the CDC and Department of Health, and maintain cleaning logs on site that document date, time, and scope of cleaning. Provide and maintain hand hygiene stations on site, including hand washing soap, water, paper towels, as well as an alcohol-based hand sanitizer containing 60% or more of alcohol for areas where hand washing is not feasible. Provide and encourage employees to use cleaning and disinfecting supplies before and after use of shared and frequently touched surfaces, followed by hand hygiene. Ensure gloves are worn while handling any food products. Sanitize hands before and after transferring a load, like a truckload of merchandise or any supplies. Conduct regular cleaning and disinfecting at least every shift, daily, or more frequently as needed. And more frequent cleaning and disinfection of shared objects like the registers and surfaces, as well as high transit areas such as payment devices, pickup areas, restrooms, common areas. Cleaning and disinfecting of retail locations, shared services, and other areas, as well as equipment, should be performed using DEC products identified by the EPA as effective against COVID-19. If cleaning and disinfection products or the act of cleaning and disinfecting causes safety hazards or degrades the materials or machinery, personnel should have access to hand hygiene stations between use and/or be supplied with disposable gloves. Prohibit shared food and beverages like buffet-style meals. That applies to both customers, and then also that means your employees, as far as eating in break rooms, etc. Hand sanitizer must be placed throughout the store for use of employees and customers. So even though people would likely only be coming in to use the bathroom, a hand sanitizing station would make sense. Here are recommendations for cleaning and hygiene. Prepare a plan for receipt, cleaning, and resale. Actually, this is more return merchandise, so we don't have to look at that one. Communication. Affirm you have reviewed and understand the state-issued industry guidelines and you will implement them. Post signage inside and outside of the location to remind personnel and customers to adhere to proper hygiene, social distancing rules, appropriate use of PPE, and cleaning and disinfecting protocols. Train all personnel on new protocols and frequently communicate safety guidelines. Establish a communication plan for employees, visitors, and clients with a consistent means to provide updated information. If a worker, visitor, or customer who interacted at the business tests positive for COVID-19, the employer must immediately notify state and local health department and cooperate with contact tracing efforts, including notification of potential contacts such as workers, visitors, and/or customers who entered the location dating back to 48 hours before the employee began experiencing symptoms or tested positive, whichever is earlier, while maintaining confidentiality required by state and federal laws and regulations. Conspicuously post completed safety plans on site. Here are best practices on communications. Maintain a log of employees and visitors who have had close contact with other individuals at the worksite or area, excluding customers and excluding deliveries that are performed with appropriate PPE or throughout contactless means. Use social media, verbal communication, and signs to provide customers with instructions to encourage them to use face coverings. So screening, again, this is going to be difficult in food industry, food service industry, but this is what's mandatory at this point. Employees who are sick must stay home or return home immediately if they become sick at work. Implement mandatory health screening assessment. Now, I think it would make the most sense. You can do these questionnaires, which is basically, do you have symptoms? Do you have a fever? You can have this done at home. These people can answer these questions before coming into work, which would make sense. So you can do a questionnaire, or you can do a temperature check before employees begin work each day and for essential visitors, asking about COVID-19 symptoms in the past 14 days, positive COVID-19 test results in the past 14 days, and or 3, close contact with a confirmed or suspected COVID-19 case in the past 14 days. Assessment responses must be reviewed every day, and such review must be documented. If a person has COVID-19 symptoms and either test positive for COVID or did not receive a test, the individuals may only return after completing at least 14 days of self-quarantine. If a person does not have COVID-19 symptoms but test positive for COVID-19, the individual may only return after completing at least a 14-day self-quarantine. If a person has had close contact with a person with COVID-19 for a prolonged period of time and is symptomatic, the individual should follow the above protocol for a positive case. If a person has had close contact with a person with COVID-19 for a prolonged period of time and is not symptomatic, the individual must complete a 14-day self-quarantine. A person who screens positive for COVID-19 symptoms should not be allowed to enter the location, should be sent home with instructions to contact the healthcare provider for assessment and testing. Screeners, if you're doing an on-site screening, they should be trained by the employer-identified individuals familiar with CDC, DOH, and OSHA protocols, and where appropriate, employer-provided PPE, including at a minimum of face covering. Designate a site safety monitor who will ensure compliance with the business's safety plan. Provide for the cleaning, disinfection of exposed areas in the event of a positive case, with such cleaning to include at a minimum all heavy transit areas and high-touch surfaces like bathrooms and doorknobs. Some recommended best practices on screening: encourage but not require customers to complete a health screen, provide contact information so that it can be logged and contacted for contact tracing if necessary. Ask employees to immediately disclose if they begin to experience symptoms, including outside of work hours. So that's a lot of text that we just read. But on the website, all that information is put into interim guidance for phase 2 operations. It'll be specific to the outdoor food service and takeout. So once you're at this website, you go through all of this text like we just read. And at the bottom of it, there is a link for an affirmation. The affirmation is required. That link takes you to a field that you put your industry in, you put your contact information. It's not asking for tax ID or any financial information. You fill that out in 3 steps, and then you hit submit. That's the requirement from New York State. That's the first step that we need to take as business owners. The next step after doing that is the NY Forward Safety Plan template. So again, thinking about all this as an open book test, this PDF takes all the information that we just went over and puts it into a form. At some points, it's just a click box, because on things that are so clear, like 6 feet, they just want you to say, all right, we're going to try whenever possible to keep that 6 feet of distance. In other areas, it is more specific. You have to talk about some of your concerns or your specific plan to meet these guidelines. You complete that, you print it out. Currently, that business safety plan does not go to the state for review or approval, just the affirmation does. That could change in the future, because as of right now, that document, the business safety plan, is for on-site use, and the affirmation goes to the state. So after we do the affirmation, which if we haven't done it already, we really need to do, if we're going to be in operation this week, we need to finish that. We complete the business safety plan. We print it out, we file a readily accessible copy of that plan at our business. If we've got delivery vehicles, I would recommend that you put them anywhere that an employee or customer is going to be interacting. You're going to post a public copy of the plan. That could also be a sign that says we have we have the business safety plan. It doesn't necessarily have to be the plan on the wall, but you want to make sure that it's clear on your premises that you have the completed business safety plan. And then schedule meetings to discuss the plan with your employees. It's going to impact their day-to-day basis, especially in a restaurant, even more specifically in a kitchen. So they need to know how this is going to change their shift. My recommendation is to assign a COVID-19 response point person. Ideally, it would be a person that drafted your plan. There's going to be questions. There's going to be changes, as we've seen this week. So if you had a point person dealing with all of it, it could help you. Keep communicating with your employees. We can't stress that enough, that they need to know how this changes their daily shift, but also what are you doing to keep them safe? Because let's look at it this way. Technically, right now, the compliance with this would be enforced by the local municipality. The anticipation would be that really complaint, it's what's going to drive concern. So if your employees feel like they're being taken care of and there's a plan, there's a less likelihood of a complaint. Same with customers. If they feel like you are doing the best that you can do to keep them safe, it's going to drive down complaints. Your restaurant is unique. Your place of business is unique. You will probably need specific protocols that make sense for your space. That makes sense. But that's in addition to meeting that state guidance that we're being asked to do. Hopefully we can get into some question and answer. Again, we want to thank our local partners, the Chautauqua County IDA, the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce, and the Jamestown Small Business Development Center.
Great. Do we have any questions?
Let me just check the chat feature here.
Yep. You got it?
So are there, a good question, are there consequences for not following the protocol or filling the affirmation? Yes. So what we understand is that the affirmations are logged by the state. Hypothetically, a local municipality could check with the state and say, what is the compliance rate in a certain jurisdiction? So yes, there are the consequence for not filing especially right now, the affirmation could be inspection, which, if you don't have the safety protocols in place, that means that you aren't in compliance with state guidance.
So, and I think in addition to that, we do have a list that we got from the state. And we can post those also on the website. It's kind of a lengthy, and it depends on what the violation is. So there's sort of an order of magnitude, if you will. There's a verbal or written warning, which would be a violation of uniform code or local building code. Those penalties might vary, but could result in a loss of occupancy certificate. I think that is the least, I guess, the least costly, if you will. And it goes up from there. So if there's a violation of health law, that's a civil violation, $2,000 for a first-time violation, up to $5,000 for a repeat violation. Willful violation of health law, that's actually a criminal misdemeanor. That's up to a $10,000 fine, and could be a year of imprisonment. And then it gets a little bit more severe each time. So we'll post these on the website as well. Check back later this afternoon. We'll try and get them up as quickly as we can. I apologize that they're not already up, but I guess as you very well know, we've got kind of a moving target, and we're trying to keep up the best that we can. So we'll continue to update the Jamestown Restart page on our city website. And then you can always check the CCIDA, SBDC, and Chamber of Commerce sites as well. So we share a lot of the same information, but it doesn't hurt to kind of cover all your bases. So are there any other? That's a really good question as far as the consequences go. So
And just to add on to that, if it's an employee making a complaint, if they were to also contact Department of Labor.
Yep.
So that's another thing to think about.
So I'll just reiterate, Seth, you said it very eloquently earlier, but you know, some of the most important pieces to take away from this are, you want to make sure that your customers and that your employees feel safe and secure, and to still be able to have an enjoyable experience, and that will kind of set the foundation for the next few months, next several months, if you will. So we just encourage you to do what you can to be in compliance, and to very openly share that you're in compliance. Post signs, but and don't hesitate to reach out to our department. As Seth mentioned, the phone number and the website are in the presentation, which we'll attach that as a PDF to our website so that you can access that and download it. But we're here answering calls all day long, so feel free to reach out.
Hey, Crystal.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Eric again with Four Below. The other thing, if there's any restaurant owners on there, the National Restaurant Association has a very nice presentation, if you go on their website, on making your employees and also your customers feeling safe. Again, it's above and beyond the normal guidelines that the state is putting out, but I personally am implementing them at my restaurant. Not mandatory, but it's something that will make people feel just that much warm and fuzzy about coming down to downtown Jamestown to sit at my restaurant and eat and partake in what I have to offer the community. So I would recommend anybody that is on the phone that is a restaurant to hop on National Restaurant Association, and they have again very good recommended guidelines or suggestions, I guess, to help as well. And like I said, I've got a dozen or so things I pull off of that that I'm going to be using in my establishment.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We can share that link to their website on ours as well. So, okay. Well, good luck, everybody. Like I said, feel free to reach out to us. It's a ever evolving situation, so we'll try to keep everybody up to speed the best that we can, but we appreciate you participating. And once this gets up on our city website, feel free to share the link with anybody else that you know that might want to take a look or to have the resource. So we appreciate you participating today. Thanks, Seth.
Everyone. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.